Why, hello there, lovely listeners and viewers. Here we are back down the red rabbit hole once again, and Alison, I can see, Alison Stockham is still with us, that lovely author that you heard last week. Alison, how are you feeling?
Hello. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yes, I'm all right. I wasn't down the rabbit hole for a whole week, so, I'm more concerned
Did
about
you
your
leave?
welfare. Of course I did.
I didn't think we were allowed to leave.
I And you leave because you catch the authors. You've been stalking the next
no,
one.
that's all I'm allowed out for, though. That's like my mission. Yeah.
Sack days.
Yeah.
So
I have
Lisa,
special sack days that I go out with my sack and I capture authors. Whoop.
well, as you can see and hear, Lisa Shepherd is with me still.
I'm still here.
Still here. And as you remember, I am thriller author NB Peacock, otherwise known as Nicky. So, Alison, we were talking about your book, weren't we? That one, lovely.
The Man She Married.
Man She Married. And we were just discussing about some of the mad research. I mean, you went down some massive rabbit holes for this one regarding that. And as your book includes like a car accident and obviously has domestic noir kind of web around it, me and Lisa decided we'd have a true crime off with a car accident case.
Okay, cool.
Unfortunately, we discovered we researched the same case.
We did.
So it's less of a true crime off, more of a present this to you to see,
Yes.
get your thoughts on it and to kind of see, with your research and what you know about, what are your views kind of thing.
Okay.
So
it's a biggie, isn't it?
It's I think most people will probably know it, but we'll give a little bit of a rundown anyway. So it's the Maura Murray case in the States. It's nearly 20 years old?
The 21 years, I
21.
think now. Yeah, what was it? 2004.
2004, madness.
Yeah.
How was that? 21 years ago.
Yeah, I know. That's quite disturbing on its
it was only
own.
the other day that.
So the case is quite I mean, it's a bit of an odd one, but it's been in the news recently because Maura Murray's sister has started a new podcast, so go and check that out. It's called Media Pressure, and it's their kind of point of view as to what happened. And of course, it's still trying to keep the pressure on as the family to find out what happened to their sister and their daughter.
Because Maura is still missing.
Moira is still missing. Yeah. Nobody knows what happened to her. She's never been seen since. There's been no sightings at all, not even kind of weird fake ones that pop up.
No, that's what I thought. Because we've talked a bit about kind of sightings and things that come up. They tend to come up, but
yeah. Even like like I said, the kind of just attention grabbing things, but nothing's really happened with this. And it's a bit of an odd case, Alison. So Moira was a student. She was a student nurse. And she'd left the dorms in her. It was in a car that wasn't quite right, wasn't it? There was something wrong with the car, and she had a lot of alcohol in the car. I mean that's quite a well-known fact. Obviously we don't know whether she was drinking it. I hope she wasn't, but she had a car accident. So she clocked into something. And the car was off the road. One of the big kind of conspiracies around this is that there was a rag in the tailpipe. However, that came out that the dad actually told her to do that to stop the smoke coming out of the car because it was it wasn't the best car in the world.
I'm not sure that's the best advice in the world.
I'm not sure that's the best advice either.
If you call the tailpipe the exhaust pipe, it kind of makes you more think like maybe you don't want to exhaust in the car.
That might have been a bit of a carbon dioxide issue.
Yeah.
However, I mean that's never really come up, and you've got to think, well, even in Beverly Hills Cop, the banana up the tailpipe wasn't a great, kind of didn't do the car any good. So I don't know about. I'm not a mechanic, I can't say, but that was one of the things that came out was that people think that someone did that deliberately to stop the car, but the advice from her dad kind of quashed that a little bit. But she had an accident. Someone heard about like a crash and looked out their window and saw the car and called the police. and a guy actually stopped his car when he saw that she was off the road and tried to help her, but she said she'd already called the AAA, like the AA in the US, and the next thing you know, she's gone.
Didn't the person over the road who saw the accident claim they thought they saw a man smoking a cigarette in the car?
They did, and they also said they saw another car with bumper to bumper at one point. But again, there was stuff missing from the car as well. So she took some of whoever did it had taken some of the alcohol, had taken like some of her stuff, and nobody really knows. There's a lot of theories about if she did it herself, that if she was dazed and confused, she wandered off into the nearby woods, and just succumbed to the elements. That it's like, wouldn't they have found her by now?
But she told tutors that there'd been a death in the family and she wouldn't be in lectures for a week. But that hasn't been corroborated by a family. So they'd said there's no such thing like that had happened. And she'd been looking up on maps, hadn't she? Some different places to go. And she'd even been looking up, I think, was it climbing in the mountains? So the area, there's lots of maps of the area in Massachusetts around where it was. And actually, she had a book in the car, I think, about climbing, how to kind of navigate some of the terrain in the area. But then, and she'd also looked up hotels in a couple of places as well, or some rooms in a couple of places. But then they were not where she was looking to climb the mountain either. So it was a bit.
She definitely had a car accident. I mean, the car was, the windscreen was cracked. There was definitely evidence of a car accident. So I don't know about you, if I had a car accident, I'm not going to go climbing straight after that. Oh, well, the car's fucked. I'm going to go and climb.
But I think it was that there wasn't, sorry.
I was saying, what did she hit and how fast was she going? Do they know?
I think she was going just normal. I don't think there was I haven't heard anything about speeding. I think she just hit like a ditch or something. Like she didn't hit another car. She didn't hit. It was just very odd.
It's just making me think of my first book, The Cuckoo Sister, when one of the main characters walks out on their life and disappears. And at the time, people were saying, oh, people don't just disappear, but they really do. And actually, one of the things I worked on with the BBC was a program called Reunited, which was working with the Missing Persons Service to bring missing people back with their family. And they were saying thousands of people every year just get up and disappear, and they are literally never heard from again. So my brain is kind of thinking that, maybe she was trying to escape from something, almost created the car accident and left.
She was seen there, wasn't she? Because I think the bus driver who pulled over to help said, do you need any help? Do you want me? And she'd said, no, I've called the rescue services. They're coming. I don't need anyone else. And she hadn't called the rescue services, no.
Yeah.
It might have been again, another theory that if she had a lot of drink in the car and she had been drinking, she wouldn't want to get, kind of the police involved in something like that. The guy that pulled over, for all the will in the world, was quite a big guy. He was described as a big guy with a mustache. So I don't know whether
when you're like, I appreciate the help, but I'm more scared that you're here than when you're not.
Yeah.
Whatever the intention of that guy, I'm sure it was all good intentions, and he was not a scary guy. But sometimes you're like, I know that you're offering to help me feel safe, but you being here is doing the opposite.
Yeah, and he probably looked scary, but he was actually the school bus driver. So he was actually perfectly safe, ironically. So there was that kind of angle to it.
Was it Otto? Otto used to drive the school bus in.
I wouldn't describe him as safe.
No. But she'd printed off an email that her boyfriend had sent a while ago, sort of talking about how he cheated on her. And that was an odd thing as well to have left in her dorm room.
And weren't some of her belongings packed?
Some of her belongings were
packed up her dorm room, but they knew the date of it by the date of that email, which seems very random. Like, why? Who prints an email?
Yeah, and leave it there. And to me, it's like, well, that could have been done by anybody. There's no guarantee that was her that printed that email. That was her that packed anything of her stuff. There's no cameras around the dorm. Nobody saw her actually physically doing it. So there's no evidence she actually was doing that at all. But it came to light, I think, a couple of years ago that there were some very bad men in the area, and they had been accused of grabbing young women and doing horrible things to them. And they'd found blood in their cabin in the woods. But I don't remember anything really coming of it. It's obviously not solved the case at all. Nobody's admitted to anything. The blood's not been, it's perhaps too degraded to get much in the way of DNA from it.
I kind of think on this one, if she did choose to go, which there is some evidence to maybe suggest she was kind of, she had chosen to disappear. I kind of think she would have come forward again by now. There's a huge difference between being 21 and being 42. And if you have lived, and you've seen your family, they've been quite public in their appeals to find her. Like, I think a more mature version of Maura would have gone, I am here, or would have made like some contact with them. And then maybe they would, like, even if she said, look, I don't want to be found, I don't want everyone to know where I am, but just going to give you a message to let you know I'm okay, then they probably would have just got a bit quiet, wouldn't have released like a podcast or anything to still be looking. So I kind of think if she was still alive, I don't know, my feeling is she would have made contact, but
she'd have at least took the money out of her bank account. Nothing's been touched. I mean, Alison, from your book, you talk about sort of retrograde amnesia. I mean, do you think that's a possibility here?
I mean, it's entirely possible that she doesn't remember who she is or where she was, and that she maybe sees these people making this appeal and doesn't know that they're her family. But I have to admit, I think if it were me and I couldn't remember anything, I would probably present myself to the medical profession, who might then put two and two together and say, is this your missing person? I don't know how together. I mean, obviously the NHS in the UK has records that's accessible all over the country. I don't know how interconnected medical records are in the States, and whether she crossed state lines and whether the information does or doesn't get passed across state lines to different medical providers. And obviously it's not a national health service, it's all private providers. So I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I know what you mean. Like, if somebody completely disappears, I mean, I would almost flip it around and say, if somebody was dead, I think you would probably find some sign of that. Although it depends how wild and wildernessy the woods near her were. I don't know Massachusetts very well as to whether it's, whether there's wild expanses that actually you just couldn't. I mean, for example, the character in my book is from Australia, and my brother and his family live in Australia, and it's entirely plausible that if you go missing in Australia in the outback, you will never be found. There's just so much space that it's possible that you could just be in one particular spot that you just, no, that's it. You'll be out there.
Eaten,
digested, the dingoes,
by various things. Yeah.
Things that gross, but things that eat bones. Yeah, that's a really complicated one, because there are elements that suggest that she wanted to leave. There are elements that suggest that perhaps she fell foul of people who had less than good intentions. Yeah, I can see why that one's a real conundrum.
I mean, the case has been out there for quite some time. The family's done an amazing job of keeping it in the headlines and making sure there's documentaries being made and that her face is there and she's getting covered on podcasts. So to me, it's, I know there is a medical condition where you don't recognize yourself, but that's got to be pretty rare to have with also retrograde amnesia.
Yeah, and also
to not go, that's me.
Yeah, and to not have, for example, if it happened in the book, Beth still knows she's Beth. Although she does look in the mirror and it's just like, whoa, because in her head she's in her early 20s. And in the time that the book takes place, she's kind of heading towards her 30s, and obviously that's a decade where your face changes quite a lot. But she would still know that she's her. And yeah, I just think if somebody had turned up and nobody knew who they were, that you think that that the organisation, the police who are looking for Maura, and the medical people who've got a patient who matches the description, who doesn't know who she is, that you think that they talk to each other. So I would kind of narrow it down to either she isn't here anymore or she doesn't want to be found.
She really doesn't want to be found. Yeah. I just looked actually. So the car had impacted a tree on the driver's side of the vehicle, severely damaging the left headlight and pushing the car's radiator into the fan, rendering it inoperable. And it was, or they've got like a version of it here on Wikipedia, a black second generation Saturn S series. So that's what she was driving, which just looking at it, it doesn't have those big old crumple zones we were talking about.
Yeah.
It's slightly older, an older car.
But also, if you're having an impact on the driver's side, like if you were going to deliberately cause an accident, one that you intended to walk away from, I don't think you would choose a driver's side impact with a tree.
Yes, actually, of all the choices, that's not a great one.
You know, I would kind of go for the side near it, so that you knew that you would walk away from that. But that impact, knowing that the fact that it's the driver's side and a tree, and that the radiator came up into the that doesn't sound like a self-inflicted accident to me.
No, and even if it was a knee jerk, I've had this accident and my dad's going to kill me, or something, I'm going to get in
my
trouble.
Dad's going to be annoyed in the police.
Yeah, I'm going to get arrested or whatever. Even if it's a knee jerk, I have to disappear. That's still, that's 20 years of time for her to go, well, actually.
Because I had a car accident in my mum's car when I'd literally passed my driving test about a week. And I remember thinking, oh my God, she's going to be so furious with me. And she was. And when I got home, we had this big row and she was annoyed. And I disappeared to my friend's house for a week. But a week for her to track me down and go, are you going to come home? I was like, yeah, I'm really sorry. But 20 years because you're annoyed that your parents are mad at you doesn't kind of sit right.
No,
I think her dad had gone to help her choose the car. They'd been like car shopping a matter of a few days before, I think, in the lead up to it. So, here we are. Journalist Joe McGee, writing for the Quincy, Massachusetts Patriot Ledger, summarized the incident at a hairpin turn. She went off the road and her car hit a tree. So it was a sharp turn. So not an intentional one. Yeah, and
what sounds like an old heavy car.
And maybe not if she was distressed or had a drink or was thinking about her boyfriend, things are breaking up or whatever. She's maybe not focusing on the road.
But also, where really was she going? Because there was a lot of booze in that car. There was lots of bottles. There was beer. There was, there wasn't just like one bottle of something of like 2020 or something, There was a lot of alcohol in that car. That was more than that one person could drink. So nobody really knows where she was going and if she was meeting someone. And there's a lot of theories again that friends were following her or either ahead of her and that they took her then from that point. But it's like, surely the woman who looked out of her window and heard the crash would have seen another car stop almost immediately, back up and pick her up. But she didn't see that.
And if you were lots of friends going to a party, you probably wouldn't travel alone because if you're going to a party together somewhere, you don't all want to take cars, do you? So why would they travel in one separate car and you go with just the booze on your own, just in case? Just in case we get pulled over, you're taking this one. Yeah. You're responsible for all the booze and we're all just traveling together.
Yeah.
And then why wouldn't they have just taken her home?
Weird.
They had. It is bizarre. And I suppose what the most bizarre thing about it is it literally like not a trace. Not a trace. Not like they found red stains all in the car, didn't they? Thinking, oh, maybe that's blood. But no, it was red wine. And also, you're thinking, did it happen before? But it probably happened during. If there was, a few bottles of red wine in the back of that car during the accident, you're going to end up with red wine all over the car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But would that indicate that she was drinking? Was it open? Or was there a bottle smashed in the car? These are the details that I think that would add to to some form of knowledge. I've got to admit, I mean, like you said, I think the odds of her being alive are pretty slim. I think personally, and I think there's a lot of cases like this with missing people. Somebody's took the opportunity of seeing a young girl on their own, probably upset, and just grab that opportunity while they've got it.
Yeah, I mean, it's horrible, but yeah, you're probably right.
I mean, we've said it before, hitchhiking is, was one of the biggest ways the serial killers got their prey. And people don't hitchhike. Even back then, they weren't really hitchhiking back then. So any opportunity that someone like that sees, they're going to jump on it.
That's a bizarre brain, isn't it? I can kind of see, like opportunist thieves.
Yeah,
I get that. I get that. But an opportunist, oh, hang on, there's a human. Let's just take them and do horrible things to them.
I don't think they think like that.
Of the hitchhiker being picked up by a driver, and then they're kind of driving along, and the hitchhiker says to the driver, "Oh, how do you know I'm not a serial killer?" And the driver says, "Oh no, I wouldn't think so. The chances of two of us being in a car at the same time, odds are minimal."
But even that though, like, so if somebody's driving round, I think the real risk to hitchhikers is that where people were going out driving with that kind of thing in mind, weren't they? Whoever is doing that has gone out in the car intentionally with that idea of something to do. Just sort of, hang on, there's somebody who's had an accident and distressed, unless they were driving around looking for that and they just thought, well, bingo, brilliant. But yeah, I don't know, I feel like going into the woods. And I do think your point about the kind of environment, I think sometimes America is more wild than I can comprehend in my little English brain.
Yeah, it's like, I remember I did a rail trip from Jacksonville in Florida to Santa Barbara in California, and going through Texas, and it was just like I'd wake up and we'd still be in Texas, and we'd have a whole day. And then I go to sleep. I woke up, we were still in Texas. We're like, how are we still in Texas? It's been 2 days. And I think, there are bits of America that are just so vast and so wild that, you probably could wander into them and get lost.
But if she was...
Whereas, you walk for 2 hours from here, you'd end up in Milton Keynes. It's not...
But if she was disorientated, yeah, they do, don't they? If she was disorientated and kind of went off into the woods, now, firstly, she couldn't have had the kind of conversation she had with the bus driver.
Yeah, no, I'm okay. I don't need any help.
Yeah,
someone's on their way.
He didn't see her as being, because if she'd have been all disorientated in that, he probably would have stopped and forced her to, to kind of just sit down and wait for the police. But in terms of, like, let's say let's say it was a delayed reaction. She wandered into the wild, but she had a load of stuff with her. So even if animals got hold of her, let's say, where's the stuff gone? Because the animals didn't party with that alcohol.
Yeah.
Or take her birth control pills.
Or or anything else that she had.
The wild rabbit population dropped right off around there in that time. Yeah.
But they partied like it was 1999.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does kind of point to humans rather than accident, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I think the behavior before is suspicious. Like, what, why would you suddenly say, there's been a death in the family and I need to go? Because actually that's not that's the kind of thing, like, if I'm ever thinking of an excuse, I worry about that one, because I don't want to kind of bring some bad juju on my family. You know what I mean? So,
like,
I have to say, an excuse,
I need to pick a cousin because I haven't got any, so I have to be accidentally tempting fate.
When I used to teach students, there's definitely a time when I thought, hang on, is that 3 times now that your grandmother's passed? That's interesting.
Like, she's an unlucky lady.
Yeah. 1, 2, where's the third one come from?
Back at Easter. But even the thing is, though, I think that you can look back on anything with that kind of eye and find it. So if nothing had happened, none of this would have been an issue. Do you know what I mean? Like, you'd have never have looked at that email and thought that was weird. You'd have never have considered that. You'd have just thought that was an excuse from a student that just didn't want to do her finals or something. Do you know what I mean? That she wasn't ready for it. You'd come up with some other way, but because there's a sinister kind of aspect to this, and I mean, there was a conspiracy around the police and how they reacted and what they did as well at the same time. But in terms of like, kind of hindsight, you can look back in hindsight and say, well, yeah, that is suspicious. But if nothing had happened, you could say, well, yeah, perhaps she did pack a few bits and bobs, just put stuff away.
I think it's like the number of inconsistencies that make you kind of go, one of them maybe, two of them maybe, three or four of them together.
I reckon any week of the year, if I go missing, my search history is suddenly going to come under some level of scrutiny.
I'm a crime writer. My search engine is horrific.
I mean, you look at some of the notes that I leave around my room. And you'd be like, oh my God, what has she done?
So I was saying to one of my friends, the only saving grace about my search history is it's peppered with checking my sales ranking. So it'd be like, oh my God, oh, she's a writer. Oh my God, oh, she's a writer, it's fine.
Yeah, but you'd sell a load of books because the police would want to buy them just to see if there was any clues.
Yeah. Be like,
There's part of me that worries though. They look like through my weekly diary and just go, this is really boring. Like, there's nothing interesting in here. No, she's just fallen in a really big pothole. She lives in Northamptonshire. Yeah. It's entirely plausible.
They poured concrete over her drain and she couldn't get back out again. She's now trapped with the clown
down there.
Like a mime, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
I'm still trying to work it out now. I'm just like, did she have another boyfriend and she was going to meet him and she just had an accident on the way to meet him and he came and picked her up.
Heading off for just a week of fun.
Bad intentions. Yeah.
Maybe she was just trying to get away. She just wanted to get away. She wanted to just relax for a bit, because they were doing some sort of exams. They were doing some technical exams or something at the time. So I don't know. It's an absolutely fascinating case, but obviously incredibly sad for the family because they've gone 20 years now and they're still no closer.
Yeah, that I think is almost the worst when you kind of look at long-term missing people's cases like Madeleine McCann. Just not knowing because you can't accept what is the most likely outcome because, humans always have the endless capacity for hope. And until you know for sure that there is no hope left, you're going to cling to the tiniest shred. And just that torturing somebody for that long, not knowing. And then you'll probably never know. It's like every time I drive up to see some friends of mine in Manchester, we go over Saddleworth Moor, and I just think of that poor little boy who's out there somewhere, and his parents never knew where he was. And that's the bit. I mean, the whole thing's heartbreaking. That's the bit I find really heartbreaking is the family that didn't ever get that closure.
Yeah, he never got to go home.
Exactly. I'll be like, oh, never do that drive when I'm really tired and emotional because I'm just like, oh. But yeah, that's got to be really hard for the family with just not knowing.
Yeah, you kind of want any answer, even if it's not a nice answer.
I mean, you must know 20 years in the most likely answer is that she's not here anymore. But you still need I'd want to know. I'd want to know.
Yeah.
Well, like you said, you want to bring her home. They should have the chance to actually say a proper goodbye to her and put her to rest. And that's part of with these missing persons cases. That's one of the worst things. I mean, there was I know there was a case in the news, it was a while ago now, where there was a mother that was going around. She was doing the catalogues, at the time. It was like in the early 90s.
Yeah.
The Avon?
No, I don't think it was Avon. I think it was something else. I think
Better Wear?
No. Hang on, was it like the pools or something like that? There was something that she was doing like door to door. And because she had money on her, what had happened was she'd been killed quite near her own house, and they'd buried her under their own floorboards. They'd done a bit of a Fred West thing.
It's amazing how many people do that. That's a really bad idea.
But she'd only been like less than a mile from her family the whole time, but it took a long time to actually discover that that's what had actually happened to her. She just never came home that night.
Oh,
that's awful. Well, on that rather somber note, yeah. Ladies, we have reached our time again. So, Alison, we will let you go. We're gonna let you go home. We'll let you out of the rabbit hole, and we'll let you go home.
We'll give your family closure.
Yes. To know that you're absolutely fine.
They were like, she went to do a podcast and we never saw her again.
Never seen again.
Back. And then she wrote these two really sinister characters with red rabbit ears into her next book. She was in her notes. And we're gonna claw over these